Hello, welcome to the stream, guys. How you guys doing today? Let me quickly move a few things around. Wow, there we go. How's it going? How's your week been? I've been doing pretty good, not too bad. Today's Friday, as per usual. It's a rainy day over here where I'm at, so it's a nice chill day. I enjoy my time here. Let's see, what else? Not much. I'm here to bring you my updated Yamato deck. As a quick update, I'm still having issues with my simulator, so we're not gonna be able to play matches. I'll be honest with you, I have no idea what's wrong with it. I've tried installing the game multiple times. I've tried the the separate way of updating your simulator. There's like a separate download that you can do now where you can just grab like the essential files and just put them into your existing game. And both ways, you know, doesn't seem to work. I'm still running into that error. Well, I'm still running into that issue where I join a game, nothing happens, and then the opponent concedes. So I don't know what's wrong with my simulator. Maybe in the next update, when they update the next thing, maybe it'll work. Maybe it just isn't gonna work at all. Maybe I'm just maybe, I mean, it's probably fine, you know, it's not the end of the world. I think instead of doing matches, what I liked last time we did the a deck profile is instead of doing matches, I like the idea of kind of like just looking through the different cards and kind of like showing you like other thought processes and other deck lists. That's exactly what I've done this time around. I grabbed two different decks, or two different deck lists from two people that I like a lot, who I trust and respect their deck building skills. So I'm gonna show you their stuff. I'm gonna show you what their stuff looks like versus mine. So I'll let you know once we actually jump into the simulator. I'll show you the cards that they decided to run in their 50 versus me. My deck is very off meta, as a heads up to you guys. So don't expect like this to be the most optimal way to build the deck. This is basically a loose idea, a loose concept of like, oh, I want to build Land Wano. I want to build Yamato Tribal to some extent. And then it's also trying to use the existing cards that I already own. So that's kind of like why this deck exists. It kind of just exists as like a Land Wano Yamato themed list. It's still pretty strong. I mean, it's not 100% Yamato themed. It could be, like a lot of the 2K counters can be better themed. I could grab the one cost event that is that has Yamato in it, whacking someone. But I'm pretty happy with the way the 50 cards came out. And I'll just go ahead and show you a little bit what I'm doing. Nothing has changed. I'm still running the same deck box, the same 10 Dons. Still stupid expensive. It's ridiculous. And then the sleeves, in case you were wondering, the sleeves are still the same. It's literally just a direct upgrade from my mono yellow Yamato deck into the green yellow Yamato. In fact, in the back I still have the original mono yellow leader, just because like the deck basically functions pretty similar. Like there a lot of the original cards are still in the deck, so a handful of changes and the deck can run as a mono yellow leader. However, I enjoy playing with this Yamato a lot more. And as like that's a little side note, I actually really love, oh wait, unblock my face. I really love this version of Yamato so much. I think the artist that did this piece really understood the essence of this character. Just a joyous young lad over here, enjoying life. This one I like a lot too. This one is, I mean, this one's really well rendered. I have no issues with this one. And I believe it is, I don't know if it's texture foil, but it is foiled. I wish they would foil these out. I say that almost every time. I wish they would foil out the normal leaders. Just because like so much work and effort goes into making this art. Especially with the newer sets we're getting now. We're getting like, from like set, what set did this come out? This was set what? Let me see if I can look at it real quick. I think this is set 6. This Yamato came out. I'm just gonna look at it. Yeah. So from this point on, like set 6 and above, all the common leaders have all had amazing art. And it's a shame that not more is dedicated to the actual card stock. Like I would prefer like a simple foiling, like most of the other cards have, or even like just this would be sick as a texture foil, or even like a different background, even like just like very similar to this one where it's like a pink land of Wano, you know, sakura trees everywhere. Like doing something similar here to the background, I think would have been cool. But you know, that's not their design language. That's not what they're trying to go for. At the very minimum, I would like this to be foiled. At least let it be accessible, because these are so dirt cheap, these leaders. I really don't like the alt art where it's just like a profile picture of Yamato, just like slightly close up with a smug expression. So there's my little rant. We'll go ahead and read the leader. I already gave you like a good look at the leader. I'll go ahead and read it. Pretty unique leader. Let me try to read it without like flashbanging everyone. So it's the double cost or double attack leader. So this card deals 2 damage. It means that it's gonna deal. It's not dealing. Because I originally thought this was like a double strike, like in Magic the Gathering, where a creature attacks separately twice. This is more so it's doing 2 damage to your opponent's life. And arguably good, arguably bad. I don't know, because you're giving your opponent like 2 cards in their hands, but you are also like, you know, extreme. You are like speeding up the game drastically by hitting them twice with 1 hit, essentially. So it has its pros and cons. It's the first leader to have double strike, and I think that's pretty unique. Most people have already figured out how to play around this character, though. Or this leader. I guess I should also tell you it's a 5k leader, 4 life, green yellow, and then its other ability is activate main once per turn. If your opponent has 3 or less life, give up to 2 Rested Dawn cards to one of your characters. So, it's a lot. I'll be honest with you. A lot of times I forget that Yamato has a second ability, just because double strike in itself is inherently strong, and then being able to give 2 Rested Dawn to another character of yours. I mean, you can't give it to a leader, but you can give it to another swinger, which is sets up for a pretty like infamous move of, you know, putting down Hody Jones, giving it 2 Rested Dawn, and then swinging for game. And I think it's fairly strong. I like this leader a lot. A lot of people have started to. I see. You know what? The 2 lists still exist. There's still like a fortress build, and there's still like an aggressive build. It's not necessarily aggressive in the sense of Skypiea. Skypiea. We've kind of shifted over from aggressive Skypiea to like aggressive Don Quixote Pirates, which is one of the lists I have. And then the fortress build has kind of leaned a little more towards the Land of Wano build, where you're kind of building up resilience through some small combos, and then of course 8-drop Kid. So those are the 2 alternate decks I have. This one is neither of them. This is just kind of like a I don't know how to best explain. I explained it at the start of this video, or the stream. I explained it at the start of the stream, and I will begin to show you the list. So we'll start. Let me see. Yeah, we'll start with our first 4, and it's gonna be Momonosuke, as you would suspect. Our searcher, our consistent searcher. We're gonna see. I think it's become pretty clear that this is a pretty relevant searcher. It's nice to have searchers that can continually search. However, being a 1-cost 0k body is really rough. It's tough, because then you have to commit a lot of time into defending this character, your searcher. It has a 1k counter, which is nice. However, the ability is activate main. You may rest 1 Dawn, or activate main, pay 1 Dawn. You may rest this character. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Reveal up to 1 Land of Wano type card, and add it to your hand. Then place the rest of them to the bottom of your deck in any order. Now, this is kind of where I think I understand the ruling of this, but as you can tell, Land of Wano is not in every single card type. There is Land of Wano and Wano Country, and I believe in the East, I believe those 2 categories, those 2 card types are treated as one. So like both Land of Wano and Wano Country are both treated as Land of Wano. Versus here in the East, we started off with Wano Country, and then we transitioned over to Land of Wano. I believe that's how it worked. Something along those lines. However, from my testing on the simulator and from how I see people play the game, this Momonosuke is able to search out both versions of Wano. So you can search out the Land of Wano type characters, and you can search out Wano country type characters with this, and it's pretty good. It makes the majority of this deck searchable. There's going to be some hits you don't make. You know, you're going to end up bottom decking some things you don't really want to bottom deck. However, I think having a recurable searcher is going to be just is a good searcher. This is one of the best types of searchers you can have in your decks. Is a searcher that can continually search throughout the game. However, having a 0 cost body, it makes it a lot worse because it makes it just so easy to KO, and you can never swing in with this character. Like, you can never throw enough Dawn onto this character to justify getting a hit in with him. So there's Momonosuke, the searcher Momonosuke. We'll put him over there. Our next character is going to be our 4 copies of Onami, an absolute powerhouse. However, if I were to compare this to anything, it would definitely be like, well, this is definitely like the poor man's version of Reject, I believe. Reject is a different card. It's a card that's getting banned pretty soon. So this is very similar to Reject. This is also similar to, this is basically a creature version of what's the name? Thunderbolt, I believe it is. It's the Big Mom event that deals a damage to you, and then you get to KO a 5 cost or less. That's basically what the trigger is here. And let me read the stats real quick before we continue onwards. So it's a 2 cost, 3k. Actually, I'll show the art first in case you were interested. This is the standard version. This is basically like, you know, the dollar card, which is great. The alt art of this, I think, you know, the nice thing is that both the alt and the standard printing of this are both really good. You're not losing out when you pick up either version of this, and I would highly recommend picking up the dollar version of Onami. It's an extremely strong yellow card. I think it's arguably an auto include in most decks, in most yellow decks. You can argue to run less than 4, but I would say you should at least you should consider putting it into your deck. And I'll read it now. So it's a 2 cost 3k, 1k counter, and then its unplayability is up to one of your leaders or character card gain banish during this turn. Banish basically is when you swing in with a character that has banish, you swing into your opponent, and instead of your opponent taking a life card to their hand, they take their life card and they put it into the trash without triggering anything. Banish is is one of the best ways to handle yellow, is having something with banish. So being able to hard counter your mirror match or your other yellow decks is extremely important. That's why I think just this top ability alone is worth running at least minimum of 2. However, its trigger is the reason why I run it at 4, because the trigger is KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. That is massive, because before we had, I believe, Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt was, you take one life card, or you trash 1 life card, something along those lines, and then you KO a creature with 5 costs or less. This basically is no downside. As long as you trigger it, there is no downside to KOing a 5 cost or less. And 5 cost is obviously, being able to hit a 5 cost is better than hitting a 4 cost. Just great card. Even if you just keep it in your hand, this card is never dead. So highly recommend. Now, our next one, oh man. This is Hiyori. Oh my god. I have very mixed feelings about Hiyori, as within the card game, without any exterior influences, Hiyori is a fine card. In your deck, it's a fine 2k counter. However, because of pricing, because of things like that, this card is just, it's good, but it's not, I don't think it's $20 good. And it really hurts me. It hurts me in the soul, knowing that this card's hanging around $20 when, our girl Nami is running at $1, who arguably I think is a much stronger card. In the grand scheme of things, I believe Nami has a longer shelf life than Hiyori. However, Hiyori is a very good 2k counter. 2k counters are never dead in your deck. And I'll read the stats real quick so you can get an idea what's going on here. So it's a 2 cost 0k, not great. It's a 2k counter, and then no trigger, which is fine. However, its on playability is very strong, and I'm pretty sure it's one of the reasons why this has kept such a high price for so long. So on play, you may add up to 1 card from the top or bottom. Yeah, you may add up 1 card from the top or bottom of your life cards to your hand. Then add up to 1 card from your hand and... Okay, that was my bad. Okay, add up to 1 card from your hand to the top of your life cards. There you go. I got it. So this is a great way to cycle cards out of your life. Even better if you're playing Katakuri, because then you know what's in your life. However, this lets you look at the top card of your life or the bottom card of your life. And then if you like what you see, you can essentially put it back. If you don't like what you see, you keep it in your hand and you put something better on the top or bottom. Well, actually, no, you can only put it on the top. So ideally, if you have something like a beige on the top of your life or on the bottom of your life, I don't like having this on the bottom of my life. But if you have a beige on the bottom of your life, if somehow you manage to figure that out, you can throw Onami on the top, and then obviously when you play it, you get to KO something. Extremely strong. Great combination, amazing 2K counter card. I very rarely play it unless I have an idea what's on top of my life or what's on the bottom of my life. If I have a vague idea what's going on with my life, I will usually play this. Even if I have like Onami in my hand, I will probably play this out just to put my Onami or something of equal value on top of my life. So if you can get your hands on 4, obviously I recommend having 4. However, for 20 bucks, you can get a lot of better stuff. You can get so much cool stuff for 20 bucks. I don't think Hiyori is the right way to spend your money, but it is a very strong card. I cannot deny that. So I do recommend it. As I showed earlier, I do have beige, Capone Gang beige, beigey. I'm running 4. I had 4 originally, so they basically just got grandfathered into the new deck, into the new Yamato deck. Extremely strong 2K counter. This is probably arguably one of the strongest 2K counters that still is playable in the game. And we've talked about it before, but as a reminder, it's a 3-cost 3K body with the 2K counter. No ability, so it doesn't do anything. It's basically worse than a vanilla. So I never play this from your hand. Just pray that you have this in your hand and you have a Hiyori and you can do some magic there. But its trigger ability is the reason why you pay. It's like a $10 card. So the trigger is like up to one of your opponent's leaders or character cards cannot attack during this turn. So you time lock one of your opponent's characters or leader. Ideally, this is something you want to play when your opponent is about to KO you and they have a board full of things. You definitely want to trigger this out, and then hopefully you'll live and be able to come up with the answer. This card has saved my life more times than I can count. It has earned its place at 4 in my decks. Amazing trigger. Everything else is like okay. Having a 2K counter, never dead. Never a dead card in hand. Which is going to lead us to our next card, which is Izo. Izo, and this is the I think this is, what is it, the promo pack Izo. So not the most expensive Izo out there, but it's a very cool Izo. We'll see if I can get a look at him. There you go. So yeah, Lana Wano type character, former Whitebeard pirate. It's a 3-cost 3K 2K counter, so on par with beige. However, it does have an effect. So on play, rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. Decent, especially in green. Green is very good at resting whatever it wants. It can rest most things in the game. It doesn't really struggle all that hard resting stuff. And green does occasionally have cards to KO 4 costs. Like for instance, this with an X-Drake would be a great combination card, great 2-card combo. But that's not what I'm trying to do in this deck. This is just a searchable 2K with a pretty relevant unplayability. So I enjoy having it at 4. I think it's obviously most 2K counters if you can afford to, or if you have the space in your deck to have multiple 4K counters, you want to max them out as best as you can. Here is the next card that I'm on the fence about keeping in the deck. It is Kikunoju, or Kiku. Kiku is I don't think anyone can argue that Kiku is a strong card. Like this is a strong 4 drop. I don't think anyone's going to dispute that claim. However, like Some can argue it's too strong. Some can argue, you know, it's too easy to play around. Like, very similar to the 5-drop Yamato. Like, the 5-drop Yamato is so strong that people almost immediately play out of it, which with Kiku is a pretty similar ability. It's a little hard to play around, but most people prioritize getting rid of this over most things. So I'll read some numbers and I'll show you the art as well. I really like the art of Kiku. I think she looks great. I don't think there's an alt version of her. I think this is it. If there is an alt version of it, I don't remember. But it's a 4-drop 6k body, no counter, which the smallest downside of the world. On KO, if your opponent has 3 or less life cards, add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life card. So it makes it very sticky. It's an extremely sticky ability. However, it's only on KO, so this can be bottom decked. It can be dealt with in most ways. As long as you're not killing it, you'll be able to work around this. And then its trigger ability, if your opponent has 3 or less life cards, play this card. So if you can get this on your life with your Hiyori, you're off to the races. Especially if you can get this off like turn 1 or turn 2, you're golden. You're golden, absolutely golden. The reason why I say this is probably like a flex slot, or like I'm on the fence, is because the what's his name, Ryuma, the 4-drop Ryuma in green, I think could potentially be better fit in this slot, just because I have something like, I have Izo, I have things like Izo in the deck that, you know, if I can rest something, then with Ryuma I can play Ryuma and KO something with the 4 costs or less if it's rested. Ryuma also has the same exact stats. Ryuma does not have a trigger, and its on playability is KO a 4-cost rested character. So I think this is ultimately the better choice. However, I have contemplated playing with Ryuma. But for now, it's Kiku, and I don't have an issue having Kiku in this slot. So now that you've seen kind of like the standard, we're gonna get into more like the things that make this deck a little bit different. And it's gonna start with the 4-drop Sanji. Again, this was another one that got grandfathered into the deck afterwards. So I think it's still arguably a very good card. One of the reasons I have an event in here that kind of justifies having my Sanji in here. So it's also one of the reasons why I kept it in here, because there's an event here that can restand a rested character. So that's why this is here, because, you know, a lot of people say you should swing in with your Sanji. Most people don't like swinging in with their blockers. However, having a way to restand your blocker is great, because then your blocker becomes offensive and can still do its job. So that's why he's in this deck, because I have a way of restanding him after he swings. Being a 4-cost 5k body, pretty standard. Like those are numbers. You can swing into a leader and demand a card from them. It has a 1k counter, which is pretty good. It's a blocker, so you know, if someone tries to swing it at you, you can block it. Not a big deal. Its trigger ability is probably what makes this worthwhile. Its trigger is you may trash 1 card from your hand, play this card. I like this trigger. I think this is a very fair way to play trigger cards. I think there definitely should be a way to, like, there should be a risk to reward thing going on with some triggers, especially with things like blockers. I'm okay with paying, like, I'm okay with discarding a card. It's not the end of the world. But I think for the stats, it's a very good card, especially when you hit it off the life. Hopefully you don't discard anything good, because that's where things get pretty bad. And our next card is, as you would suspect, our Yamato, our 5-drop Yamatos. So here is one of them. This is the parallel life one, or the parallel foiling, the alt art. However, this is the only English one I have. The other 3 I have are Japanese versions, just because at the time I bought them, they were pretty cheap. They were at a very reasonable price. I think they were like 20 bucks. But this is a crazy expensive card. This is still a crazy expensive card. The price is starting to drop a little bit, but it's nowhere near, you know, what is a reasonable price for a card. So I'll go ahead and go through the stats. It's a 5-cost 5k body with a 1k counter. Sometimes I forget it has a 1k counter just because the art blends in with the counter text. And then what does the text do? It is you treat this card as Kazuki Odin according to the rules. So this is, if you have Odin relevant cards, this will fit perfectly in that deck. It has double attack and banish. So this is basically your leader on steroids. And I think I don't see this card enough in list. I can understand why. This is one of those more expensive like things you get for your list. This is one of those expensive cards because even the standard version of this card is I think like 40 bucks. So I can understand why people don't want to play it. Also, like I've said in the past, this Yamato is an extremely it's prevalent to removal. Like this thing will normally get removed 9 times out of 10, and I don't think anybody can argue that point, just because like it is so much value that it needs to be dealt with almost immediately. Very similar to Kiku, where Kiku offers so much value that your opponent really does just need to handle that, needs to take priority in handling that. So that's why I like running this. It's part of just like the Yamato theme. I love the art of this. I think this is probably one of my favorite. We've talked about what my favorite art is. However, this is a contender to being one of my favorites. I really love this. And I would like to, at some point in the future, replace these with English ones. However, prices aren't there yet. I'm not comfortable paying that much for 3 extra copies, so I do this instead. So there's our 5 cost. And then our next ones are probably going to be kind of controversial. Well, not controversial, but I'm only running 2 Hoodie Jones, and that's where the controversy is. In a Yamato deck, you always run 4. I have 4. I'm choosing to run 2 in the deck just because of the way that the curve works on in this deck, where I do see this card. However, I'm not flooded with, or what's the best way of explaining this? The way I have this deck built out, the curve is favored towards the things with counters versus the boss monsters. The boss monsters, I have a lot of boss monsters, and as we know, boss monsters don't have a lot of counter power, so I try to keep that in check by running 2 Hoodie Jones. The other boss monsters in here, I think, can arguably keep this number low. If I didn't have the other cards in this deck, I would definitely be running this at 4. But let me read the card first before we continue. I also plan on upgrading these to the alt version, just because the alt art looks really good, and it's something I wanted from the start. I just couldn't afford it. It's getting more affordable, so I'm willing to bite the bullet. It's a 7 cost AK body. It has rush, and its on play ability is rest up to a total of 2 of your opponent's characters or Dawn cards, then add up to 1 card from the top of your life to your hand. Wow. I mean, that is enough of a reason to run this at 4. It is such a strong on play ability, and being a rush body, like being able to rush in to kill something or to hit your opponent, is extremely strong, especially when you combo it with your ability, with your Yamato ability, where you play this, you activate Yamato, you give this 2 rested Dawn, you rest 2 of your opponent's characters, ideally they're blockers, and then you swing in for face for 10k. This is an incredible boss monster. There is no reason to go past this. However, in my deck, I have 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 other cards that I think are better than these. So I'll go ahead and show you them. The next ones, you've already seen. It's not going to be a surprise to what I'm running. I'm running my 8-drop Katakuris in this deck because, again, these are grandfathered in from my last Yamato deck. And I was, lucky enough to buy 3. I couldn't get the 4th copy, and I don't think I need a 4th copy because this does break up your hand very badly. I'm never upset to see it. I like seeing it. However, drawing 3 of them in your opening hand is a no-go, especially if like the 3 of them are in your mulligan hand. Oh man, that's a painful thing to draw when you mulligan. But Katakuri, not only one of my favorite characters, also one of my favorite alt arts in this game. I think this is just like one of the best cards they made. One of the best art versions they made. Incredible work done. Absolutely love this. So the stats are AK, it's an 8-drop for AK. And its on play abilities add up to one character with the cost of 8 or less to the top or bottom of its owner's library face up, or its owner's life face up. There you go. So this was Yellow's original removal, and it still is one of Yellow's best removal spells. We just recently got Kingdom Come, and Kingdom Come is a better version. Like, arguably, Kingdom Come is KOing your opponent's character. It's going to KO anything on your opponent's field. The downside is it's going to reduce your hand, or it's going to reduce your life cards to 1. Versus this is a lot more versatile, where you play this and then either you can take care of one of your opponent's egg drops, or you can put one of your things back into your life to try to like regain life. So for instance, like you could put your beige back into your life. If for some reason you played your beige like a crazy person, you could put it back into your life with your egg drop. Kiku, you could put Kiku back into your life with this, which is probably the better option. That's if your opponent doesn't have anything threatening. Normally I play this to get rid of big bodies on my opponent's field, because a lot of times around the 8 or less, like 8 or 7, your opponent has significant bodies to mess with. So that's why I run this at 3. I think this is still an amazing card, and it's been grandfathered into the deck for a reason, you know. An extremely powerful card. And then our next one, to kind of play off the theme of Yamato, and of course grandfathered in from the last deck, is our 9-drop boss monster Yamato. So, but on, if we can ever get to look at this card, there we go. Awesome. And then I am running this at 4. This is a amazing card. It's a decent stats. The stats are great. It very rarely removes, I mean, it does remove significant bodies. However, this heals you. So when you're down to like 1 or 2 life, being able to heal off of this, and not only that, but chain heal. Like usually you can heal about 2 or 3 cards if you play these, you know, one after another each turn. It's an extremely strong boss monster. Let me go ahead and read it. So for 9-drop, you get a 9k body. No counter, as most boss monsters do. And then its on play ability is KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost equal to or less than the total number of life you and your opponent's, sorry, the way it's worded, it's throwing me off. So KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost equal to or less than the total of yours and your opponent's life cards. Then if you have 1 or less life cards, add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life cards. So there you go. Its second ability is great when you're at 1 life and you need a heal. If you're at 1 life, it probably means you're gonna die. Realistically, unless you're an L. If you're an L, then you want to live at 1 life. And then being able to, like, you know, chain this and recoup more life is amazing. Normally you're KOing, the most you can expect to KO is like a 4-drop, and that's on a good day. But normally you're gonna KO a 4-drop. You'll be able to heal 1 life, and then of course you'll have a 9k body on the field. Great boss monster. I like this. If I were to drop, I would probably drop this to 2 in order to get my Hody Jones to 4, but that's the only change I would make. This has saved me a lot. Very similar to beige, this has, you know, pulled me out from the trash very quickly. And I do like running that. Of course, because it's a Yamato deck, I want to make it more Yamato themed, so I'm running the boss monster Yamato in the list. Our next one is gonna be our you are the one who should disappear. You're the one who should disappear. There you go. Our 0-cost event. I've said in the past, 0-cost events are probably some of the best cards you can run in your decks. They make bricked up hands playable, and the trigger on this is probably one of the strongest we've seen for a 0-cost event. So its ability is 0 cost, so you can play this without, you don't have to pay Dawn. The only thing you do have to do is you have to trash a card from your hand. It's a small price to pay, especially if you have like 3 Katakuris and you're about to die. Playing this out to counter an attack is great. And then up to one of your leaders or characters gain 3k power during this battle. So it essentially turns one of your 0 counter cards into a 2k counter, and for no extra Dawn. These things are so good. You should always have these. Like I always recommend, even if you don't, I play it at 3. However, I think everyone should have a play set of each color, because you never know where they're going to be put. You never know what deck you're going to build. Having these in the deck will always be good. You're never going to have a dead card with this. The trigger ability, if you have 0 life cards, you may add up to one card from the top of your deck to your life cards, then trash 1 card from your hand. This is your failsafe. If this is at the bottom of your life cards, you've essentially healed yourself. You've given yourself 1 extra chance. So it's an extra life. You discard a card from your hand to gain that life from the top of your deck. Obviously, you don't know what's on top of your deck. You don't have ways to looking at the top of your deck. But just being able to heal and recover from a potential loss is so big. It's a great trigger ability if you can get this to trigger. And of course, if we want, we can use our Kiku. We can use Hiyori. We can use Hiyori to put this at the bottom of our life to guarantee that we have an extra life. So ideally, instead of being a 4 life leader with this at the bottom of our life deck, we become a 5 life leader, essentially. So amazing card. Run your 0 drop. So the next card we're going to show is, I don't know if it's a good or bad pick. The next event I'm going to show you is in the deck because it's a Lanawano card, and obviously it's searchable. It's a 1-drop, and it does have a trigger. And its main ability, it has 2 abilities in its counter ability. So Paradise Waterfall, I'm running at 4, and I think it's a bit of a spicy take. I think it's a very spicy pick for a Lanawano type. I don't think I've ever seen anyone put this in their deck, in their Yamato deck. And I find it very hard to believe why. I don't understand why. If you're running a, what's his name? What's this little kid's name? Momonosuke. If you're running Momo, the Searcher Momo, there's really no reason why you shouldn't have at least 2 of these in your deck. Let me read it. It's a 1-drop counter ability. Play up to one of your leader or characters gain 2k power during this battle. Then set up to one of your characters as active. So I can understand for 1 Dawn, getting only 2k power out of your counter spell is pretty rough. It's a hard pill to swallow. However, what I started to do was, if I can find him, there he is. You live there. Is I can restand my Sanji with this. So using my Paradise Waterfall, I can give something. I can swing in with my Sanji, and then if they want to clap back, I can play Paradise Waterfall to give Sanji 7k, and then obviously if it's able to survive, I can restand it to be a blocker again. Is it until the end of turn? No, end of battle. So it's only for the battle. It'd be even better if it was for the turn, but it's not for the turn. To be a little too strong. But I think this 2-card combo is pretty significant. Or even if, let's say you block something earlier, and then your opponent's trying to swing into your leader, you play this, you give your leader 5k power or 7k power, and then you restand your blocker again to defend the next attack. So really good card. I think it's a very underrated Lanawano event. A lot of people are playing what was the event called? You Should Be My Samurai. It's the 2-cost one that lets you rest 2 characters and then draw 2 cards. That's a perfectly fine event. In fact, one of the lists I'm going to show you later is running a playset of them. I personally think this is just a better counter event. For 1-drop, you're getting to restand a character and you're defending your character. You're defending a body. And then its trigger is KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. Great trigger. If you're... Is it rested? Rested. Yeah, rested character. So obviously, with where is he? Where's he at? Where's my boy? Izo it is, I think. Yeah, Izo. If you have Izo, you play Izo, you rest a 4 cost, and then maybe you get to trigger something. I don't know. obviously your opponent, like especially against like red purple law, your red purple law is playing a lot of 4-drops. So being able to trigger this and KOing like a Kid Killer is super big. Wait, is Kid Killer a 4-drop? Yeah, it is. Kid Killer is a 4-drop. Being able to kill a rested Kid Killer, already worth the value. So I like that card. I like Paradise Waterfall in the list. It's searchable, it's defendable, it restands a blocker in my deck. So I think it's a 10 out of 10. If you end up testing it out, you know, let me know what you think. I've had a great time using it. And then our last cards, 3 of the 200 million volt Amaru. This is another yellow staple. I think at the start when this card got released, I was not very high on it. I didn't think it was that great, but as I continue to play it, as I see this more in more games, it surprises me every single time. This card is so busted. It feels very strong, and I'm very happy to have at least 3. 3 is okay, 4 would be better, but you know, 3 is fine. So it's a 2-cost event. Main ability, up to one of your leaders or characters gain 3k power during this turn. Then, if you have 1 or less life cards, rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. So amazing in your Enel decks, because Enel wants to be at 1 cost. But however, just being in any deck, like if you're at the end game, chances are you're at 1 life anyways. So essentially having like a miniature Hody Jones or having like a miniature Diablo Jambe is great. It's a great finisher, especially if you chain like 2 of these. If you chain 2 of these, you're resting 2 of your opponent's 4 costs, and then you're pumping up one of your characters for 6k, or you're pumping up 2 characters for 3k each. So super versatile. 2 costs is fine, especially if it's a main ability. You know, you don't have to hold up 2 Dawn on your opponent's turn. You play this out whenever you can. The trigger ability is you may trash 2 cards from your hand, add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life cards. A great, again, another amazing way to recover life when you are, you know, on death's door. I mean, you can trigger this at any point in the game. You don't have to be at 0 life. You just have to trash 2 cards from your hand, which kind of sucks, you know. Trashing 2 cards is hard. Trashing 1 card is okay. Trashing 2 is a very hard pill to swallow. However, if you're gonna die, you do whatever it takes to survive, right? So having at the minimum 3 ways to recover life, well, technically more, because I have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I have 13 ways in the deck to recoup life, which is great for Yamato, because Yamato is kind of like a steam engine. It starts off very strong, and then as you get to the late game, it starts to peter out. So having all these ways to recoup life at the end game specifically is very good for Yamato. It kind of gives Yamato a second life. It gives it like extra steam to burn. It gives it extra water to burn in its steam engine. So this deck is not, I don't know how good it is. I've done pretty good with my list. However, I've drawn bricks. I've misplayed. However, this deck will normally win. I don't know what the percentage is for this deck. Like out of 10 games, I don't know how many games I've won, but I do know that I've always felt very comfortable piloting this version of Yamato versus this version of Yamato. This version of Yamato was strong. This was a very good yellow deck. However, having a hyper aggressive leader with the stamina to survive late game is crazy good, while still staying aggressive. So it stays aggressive and it does survive the late game. It is capable of surviving the late game. It doesn't always survive late game, but it has a very good chance of doing it. So that was my list. Also, I mean, I've already showed you the Dons, but yeah, they're my Dons. 10 Yamato Dons. They're all Japanese Dons. Got the sleeves with the Dons. Deckbox is going to be upgraded, well, not soon, in a couple of months. I do have a custom order for a leather deck box coming in, but it's going to take a couple of months because they have to make the leather deck. Not only mines, but they're also making like they're making like what's the word? They're doing a mass order. So it's probably going to take a few months before everybody gets their new Yamato leather deck boxes. So I'm just gonna have to wait until that shows up, and then if any new upgrades come out that I want to show you guys, I'll make another stream. However, I'm gonna go ahead and boot up the simulator. We're not gonna play any games because, as I mentioned at the start, the simulator is not working on my end. I'm not able to fix the problem that I had last time. So let me go into the deck. Let me get the deck loaded. As soon as we can, yep, there we go. I'll switch the camera in a second. You know, stick with me for a minute. This thing is taking its time. Okay, so we say goodbye. Goodbye, webcam. You've done your job. And then we will pick the simulator to show. There it is. Hello, simulator. Welcome back, simulator. you jerk. You don't work. It's very upsetting. So, all right. So here's the list that we just saw. Let me just move this web camera out of my way. There you go. The webcam is like just sitting above my thing. So here's the list that we just saw. This is exactly what I'm running right now. Again, if you like it, here's a quick look at it. Here's the first alternative list that I saw. This is a list based off of DV Theory's Yamato deck. So when he was playing Yamato, he made a video showing off Yamato, and this is basically what he was running. Well, very similar. This is the final list he came up with towards the end of his video, and I do like it. I think it's great because it's using the 4-drop Hiyori, which this is, you know, if you can't read it, it's 4 cost 0k 1k counter. Again, I don't like those stats. I think this is one of the easiest cards to remove, just because a lot of things can deal with a 4 cost and a lot of things can KO a 0 cost body. So having a 1k counter is good. I wish it was a 2k counter. I feel like that could make up for its stats. However, it's on play, it's activate main. It's an extremely strong ability. So you may place this card into your trash, place up to 1 5 cost or less Lana Wano type character other than Hiyori from your hand onto play, then draw 1 card. So this will immediately replace itself with a 5-drop, which, as you can see, this is the blocker Momonosuke, is a 5-drop. It's a blocker. That's great. And then, of course, it also draws you a card. So even if you don't have Momonosuke, you can play in this version, you can play Otama and then still get a card out of your deck, or you can play the Momo. You can also play the Momo, but ideally what you want to do is you want to play Hiyori, then you want to use Hiyori's ability to get out Momonosuke. Momonosuke is a 5 cost 6k power, no counter power. It's a blocker, and then its on play ability is play up to one. Okay, place up to one of your Wano type characters other than Momonosuke on top or bottom of its owner's life pile face up. So again, this combo is great with a Hiyori. It combos great with your Otama. It combos great with, what else do we have here that it could do? I think that's pretty much it. Either your Hiyori or your Otama. If either of these cards are on play for some reason, which in my personal opinion, I don't think you should be trying to play these cards unless you need to. Like, the Hiyori is a little more understandable. So the idea is you have Hiyori out, then you play your other Hiyori to play out your Momonosuke, and then you bounce your Hiyori back into your life. And then, of course, that gives you a 2k counter. Weirdly enough, this is not playing the hang on. We'll give this a second to load. It's not playing the Kiku, which normally you want to play with your Momonosuke. So the Kiku is the 4-drop 6k body that if it gets KO'd, it heals you 1 life. If this will ever decide to load, there we go. And then we'll do green. Give it a second because the simulator is pretty slow at loading cards up. But yeah, that seems to be the idea. And then we have other cards that we've seen. We've seen these two. They're going to search out the rest of your deck. Use this Captain Kid. is probably one of your better boss monsters. It's a great 8-drop. It's a Dawn. I'll go ahead and read it. 8 cost 8k body. So you attach 1 Dawn on your opponent's turn. If this character is rested, your opponent cannot attack anything other than this character named Eustace Captain Kidd. And then it's activate main once per turn. You may rest this character. Play up to 1 character with a cost of 3 or less from your hand. So that's great. I'm trying to see what you can play with this. Again, I don't play this deck. This is a deck based off of the VV Theories list. I did see him play it. It played very well. Obviously, Eustace Kidd is probably the best blocker without blocker in the game. So they're also very expensive. So I don't recommend buying them just because the cost to value isn't there, in my personal opinion. I would wait for a reprint if it's going to come out, but we don't know. Well, no, we do know reprints are coming out, but we don't know if this is going to be in the list of reprints. But it's a great blocker. It's a great way to block things because, you know, your opponent has to commit a lot of Dawn or a lot of power to KOing this character. And then, you know, every turn you'll be able to play a 3 cost or less. So you'll be able to play these, you know, being able to play an Onami, you know, right from your hand for free is really nice because Onami is going to give your leader banish. That's the perfect combination. You have double attack, then you give your double attack banish. Your opponent has to trash the top 2 cards of their life. And that's such a devious combination. It's crazy. On your 6th Dawn turn, I highly recommend playing an Onami and then swinging in for like 9. Your opponent is gonna be pissed. But yeah, it's great. Kidd is obviously just a great 8-drop. And then we have the Don Quixote del Flamingo, our 10-drop, 10k body. On play, a total of up to 3 of your opponent's rested characters or leaders do not become active during your opponent's next refresh phase. So this basically locks your opponent's characters down. Of course, they have to be rested. Does it rest them or do they have to be rested? Yeah, it's a rested character. So if your opponent was swinging into you, you can play your Doflamingo and leave those characters rested so they're no longer an issue for you. Again, awesome card. Especially if you can start chaining them. So if you play these, you know, turn after turn, your opponent basically has a very hard time recovering from this. And then we have the Hody Jones. As we know, this is your 4 copies of Hody Jones. You don't leave home without these. I'm running 2, but I recommend running 4. Ryuma, this was the other card I was talking about that I wanted to replace Kiku with. This is a 4-drop 6k. Actually, can this play this? No. Which one am I looking at? I mean, yeah, technically Hiyori can play Ryuma. However, Ryuma doesn't have a trigger, which I would probably replace this with Kiku if I had to replace something. Just because being able to throw a Kiku back with Momonosuke I think is better than throwing back a Ryuma. But Ryuma is a very strong ability. It's a very aggressive card. It's 4-drop 6k on play / on KO. KO up to 1 of your opponent's rested characters with a cost of 4 or less. Very strong. You're dealing with 4 drops. You get rid of very aggressive bodies with this. I do like this in the list. It doesn't have counter, which is fine because it's a pretty big body. You can either play this or Kiku. Both are good. And then of course we have the Otama, the 1-drop 0k. This is not coming out until the next set. So this is going to be pretty soon. But we don't have access to this card just yet. So it's a 1-drop 0k body. Baby. You should never play this, but it does have an on-play ability that is relevant. It's a 2k counter, so very easy. It can defend your characters. On play, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 green Land and Wano type card other than Otama, and put it into your hand. Then place the rest of the bottom of your deck. So this is your searcher. Alongside with your Momonosuke, you got another searcher that is also a 2k counter. Obviously, this is arguably a worse version, because this has a 2k counter. However, Momonosuke can search multiple times. It does require a Dawn to do it, but you know, it is capable of searching more than once, whereas Otama can only search once, and that's it. And then of course it's a 2k counter. Ideally you don't want to be playing your 2k counters, but it's a searcher, so I think it's okay. But it's extremely easy to deal with. I'm not a huge fan of Otama, but you know, it works. And then Onami, we've talked about Onami. Onami is really just an auto include if you're in yellow, I feel like. Especially if you're playing aggressively. If you're playing aggressively, this makes a lot of sense. And then Hiyori, we've talked about Hiyori, another great 2K counter. We just talked about Momo. Momo is a great way to combo off of your Hiyori. You throw something back into your life, and you're kosher, you're good to go. And then you can be my samurai. This is the event I've been talking about for a while, where I'm not a big fan of it, but I do understand and respect its power. So it's a 1-drop event. Main, you may rest 2 of your characters, draw 2 cards. So obviously, when you have things like Hiyori, you have things like Otama, you have things like Momonosuke, these realistically are never going to do anything in your deck. When you play these out, these are just going to sit there looking pretty, right? So being able to use You Can Be My Samurai to draw 2 cards off of them, very strong. I understand why it's in the list. So it gives your characters, your 0 cost characters, a purpose, which I'm fine with. It makes sense. And then of course, you're the one who should disappear. 0 cost event. You should always run these in your deck, especially because we're running a good chunk of 0 cost or no counter characters. So being able to play this and cycle these out of your hand is extremely strong. So this is a very like streamlined version of the deck. This is a very thin deck. You know, there's from what I'm seeing, there's very little wiggle room here because you're playing everything at maximum. You're playing everything at 4. Of course, your only exception is your kids, which I wish I would probably like lose one of these and get an extra one of these just because like kid is so strong. It's such a strong 8-drop. It's very hard to argue running less than 2. But yeah, I mean, there's our first list. I like this list overall. This is kind of like where this deck, like this is where the leader is right now. This is kind of like, understandably, one of the strongest lists that you can put together. I don't think it's the strongest list, but this is probably the most utility you can get out of the Fortress build. Which, the thing that makes it the Fortress build is the Kid. However, of course, Doflamingo and Kid both make this deck very defensive. With the 0 cost event, you do have a bit of survivability at the end game. If you do trigger this off of life, you do gain a life, so it is nice to be able to gain life. And then of course with your event, you get to draw most of your deck. You're drawing a lot of cards in this list. And then there's the Hiyori. So we're gonna move on to the second list. The second list is a little more comprehensive. I made tweaks to the list because the second list was running rejects, and rejects, we already know rejects are becoming banned, or they're going to be banned. So I replaced the rejects with a few other cards. And this is the list. I'll talk about the list, the changes I made to the list. However, this is based off of Cross AI's Yamato list. I caught one of his streams recently, and when at the end of his stream he showed the list, and I think did he go undefeated? I think he lost maybe like two or 3 games. I think he lost like 2 or 3 games after streaming for like 3 or 4 hours. Like he was streaming a very long time, only playing simulator games. Like he was grinding this leader out, and this is what the end result of his list looked like. This is not exactly his 50. I made some improvements based off of my preferences and obviously based off of bannings. So instead of playing the rejects, which if we look at reject, where is reject? Reject is hanging out somewhere here. I will find it in a second. Ah, here it is. Here's reject. So reject, crazy strong card. However, it's getting banned. Reject is basically 2 cards. It's basically Soul Focus and Onami's Trigger. Actually, no, it's like Soul Focus and Thunderbolt in 1 card for less than 7 Dawn. It is a 4 Dawn thing. 4 Dawn, you get 7 Dawn worth of abilities. That is, it's understandable why it's getting banned. I understand why it's getting banned now, because this is a crazy strong card. So it's a 4-drop event. It actually doesn't even matter if we read it. Well, it's gonna get banned. It doesn't matter. I'll read it. So it's a 4-drop. Activate main, or main. Choose one of the following effects, or choose one of the following. KO to one of your opponent's 5 costs or lower characters. So immediately that is our Thunderbolt, or the trigger off of Onami. And then its second ability is if your opponent has 1 life, deal 1 damage to them, then add the top card of your life to your hand. So that is a better version of Soul Pocus, or a better version of the 7-drop Big Mom, where your opponent, well, Soul Pocus, which is what I have, is your opponent may choose one of the following effects: trash one life card from the top of your opponent's life area, or put one card from the top of your deck to the top of your life area. So normally when you play a card like this, your opponent understandably chooses to trash one of their life, which is fine. But again, giving your opponent the option to do something is never great, which is why Reject is so good, because Reject is forcing your opponent to take that damage when they're at 1 life. And then its trigger ability is to draw a card. So, I mean, this card is never dead. It's doing like 7 Dawn worth of abilities for 4 costs. So I understand why it's banned. I've tried to mitigate it. I tried to like fix it in the deck to still have the effects of Reject, but split over 2 cards. So that's why Soul Pocus and Onami are in the list, to kind of make up for the Reject, for the loss of Reject. Another change I made was I added Hiyori's, because originally Cross AI was running Sanji's, the 2-drop Sanji's, or the 2K. Yeah, here it is. So I don't understand why he was running this Sanji version, or this Sanji. He was running this at I think 4. I decided to switch it out for Hiyori, you know, bump it up to 3, and then bump this up to 3. Man, he runs very small. He runs such a tight deck list. Like only running 6 2K counters. That's wild to me. So this is 2-drop, 3K body, 2K counter, 2 non when attacking. You may add the top or bottom card of your life area to your hand. Add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to your life. So it's a great way to cycle cards out of your life. However, in my opinion, I think Hiyori is a better version of this. Even though it only does it once, it doesn't require Dawn to be attached to it, and it lets you look at the card and then replace it with something in your hand, instead of like trying to like gamble with the top card of your life. So I like it. I like this over Sanji. But I kind of get it, you know. I kind of understand why it's there, but obviously I think Hiyori is just a better version. The next thing, what else did I change? Oh yeah, that's right. I added the complays. Originally he was running the 7-cost Linlin, which is fine. I understand why. 7-drop Linlin is a good card. I don't think anyone's gonna argue that. It's a 7-drop AK. On play, your opponent, basically it's Soul Pocus. It's Soul Pocus on a creature, and that's fine. But the reason why I chose to play this card over Linlin, over Big Mom, is because it has counter, it's a bigger body, and I already have this effect with Soul Pocus for less. So it was either this, or I was gonna run the Enels, wherever the Enels are. Don't know where the Enels went. Enel is somewhere in this list, I think. Oh man, I probably looked at him and I just, oh, there he is. I see him. Okay. So it was either going to be Complay or it was going to be Enel. Enel's good. Enel's a great card to have in this position. However, Complay has a counter. It's a big body, and I don't see an issue running it in this list over Big Mom. So those are the changes I made. So let's look at the rest of the list and think about what's going on here. So Sugar. Sugar is we talked about Sugar, so I'm not going to read her again. But what's strange about Sugar in this list is that Sugar works best in a Don Quixote package. So either you're playing this in Rosinante or you're playing this in Doflamingo, because you're basically losing half of the ability when you play it in a different deck. So it's only ability technically in the game right now. Well, in this deck it only has 1 ability, and that ability is on play, rest up to 1 of your opponent's characters with the cost of 4 or less. That is okay. That's okay for 2 costs. It's a 1K counter in your hand, so it's fine to run in this list. It's way better in a Rosinante list, and it's way better in the Doflamingo list, but it's fine in here. It's okay. And then of course we're running the 10-drop Doflamingo. This is a great boss monster in the list. Lets you rest whatever you want. Here is your baby 5. Your baby 5 is basically your 2K counter. It's a 1-drop 1k 2k counter. End of your turn. You may trash this character. Set up to 2 of your Dawn as active. It could be okay. You might want to play this out. However, we mostly have this because it could be searched. It's a 2k counter that can be searched with our searcher along with this. So normally we don't want to play this. You can play it and then you can play your sugar, but ideally you don't want to. So keep this in your hand as a 2k counter. It's fine. And then Rosinante. Rosinante is our blocker that is searchable with our searcher. And then of course, if something were to be KO'd, you can trash this card instead of that character getting KO'd. So great effect, especially I've talked about this in the past. We're moving into a KO relevant meta, so having something that can prevent KO effects from activating is good. And then here's our searcher, the Baby 5, the searcher for the Don Quixote package. The 1-drop 1k counter, 1k attack, activate main, tap 1 Dawn. You may rest this character, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 card with the Don Quixote pirate type and add it to your hand. Then place the rest of the remaining cards to the bottom of your deck in any order. Ugh. Ugh. Oh my gosh. My voice is starting to dry out. So again, this is a great searcher. You want searchers that can search multiple times a turn, or that can search each turn, I think is what is the word I'm thinking of. Unless you can restand this, then you can search multiple times, but ideally you just want to search once per turn with this. So instead of being an on-play ability, it's an activate main ability. So it's a great way to pull out your Don Quixote package. You'll always be able to grab your boss monster. You'll always be able to grab your blocker. Getting this, and this, getting your other 3 is just a bonus, just extra. In case you don't have them, you can grab them. Hody Jones, we've talked about in the past. We've talked about Complay. Here's the new one. This is the Shirahoshi that we pulled from a few packs. It's a 2-drop 0k attack, 1k counter. When this character is KO'd by opponent's effect, place up to 1 card from the top of your deck onto your life. Top of your deck onto your life. Yep. Okay. And then it has blocker. Okay. So now that we're into the meta, now that we're in OPO or EBO1, I now understand how this card works. This basically prevents, again, it's very similar to Rosinante. However, it's doing it for itself. So it is preventing your opponent from KOing this thing with random like black cards, essentially. Like this is basically the anti-black card, because it's preventing your opponent from using their KO effects, their KO cards, which is great because then they have to swing into this, or they have to bottom deck this, which obviously black has a hard time bottom decking stuff now. And then what else? Most things have a hard time dealing with this. Blue I think is the only color that can deal with this at the moment. That could change in the future, but however, this is a great blocker. It's something that forces your opponent to swing into it. And then Onami, we talked about Onami. I think Onami with Yamato is always going to be strong. If you get this to trigger, you're laughing to the bank. This is such a great card to trigger. Hiyori's, we've already talked about. Great 2k counter, great on-play effect, or zero cost event. Only reason why we're playing this version of the zero cost event and not the you're the one who should disappear, which I'm gonna say this is the better zero cost. However, this is searchable with your Baby 5, which is the only reason why I'm choosing this over the other one. I mean, not that I'm choosing, but it's the reason why it's being played. So obviously it's just like every other zero cost event. You trash a card, you get 3k power during this battle. The trigger is rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. Same effect as Sugar. It's great, it's searchable. No reason not to have them. And then you have your Straw Swords. This is another card where I was thinking about running regardless. It is a 2-drop main, rest up to one of your opponent's characters. No restrictions. If you play this and then no, we can't play these two at the same time. But you play this and then you play this, obviously. You rest 4 things instead of, well, no, you rest 3 things instead of 2 things. So great combo card. You get to rest your opponent's big stuff. And it's only characters, not leaders. Okay, good. And then its trigger is play up to 1 supernova. The trigger doesn't matter. It plays a supernova with a cost of 2 or less. We have no supernovas in this deck, so this basically doesn't do anything. The trigger doesn't do anything, but the activate main, or the main ability, is what you're playing it for, to like rest something to either swing into it or to swing into your opponent's leader with. So you want to rest a blocker or rest a big body and then like try to kill it. That's the idea of this. Then you have Elthor. I haven't seen Elthor in a hot minute. So Elthor is a 1-drop counter event. Give up to one of your leaders or characters plus 2k during this battle, for this battle. Then if your opponent has 2 or less life, give that character an additional 2k power. Give that card an additional 2k power. So this is your Radical Beam in yellow. Extremely strong. I'm glad to see it in this deck. I'm glad like Cross is playing this, because I think anything that resembles a Radical Beam I think is extremely strong. Radical Beam was such a menace that it got banned or limited at some point in the meta. And then its trigger is K up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost equal to or less than your opponent's life total. Equal or less to their life total. Yeah. So I'm just double checking. Yeah. So this is, what is it? Is it like it's a good trigger. I think it's fine. Normally your opponent is probably going to be at like 3 or 4, or you know, your opponent's not going to be at a very high life count, so triggering this is not great. However, just having a Radical Beam is always fine. And then Soul Focus, we did read. Soul Focus is here, as we talked about. It's a replacement for Reject, and it's a replacement for our 7-drop Linlin. It's exactly the same ability as Linlin. The trigger is the same as the activate main. It is a weaker version of Reject. However, it still has a similar, an adjacent ability, a very similar ability to Reject. If before the bans, you can play a full set of Rejects. There's no ban list yet, or they haven't banned this yet, but in a couple of weeks, a Reject is going to get banned, and then you're going to have to switch it out for Soul Focus or something of equal value. You know, you could also just run more 0-cost events. You can run more Elthors. You can run basically anything. Like, it doesn't matter. You can run whatever you want. But you know, Reject's getting banned, so I chose to play Soul Focus as a replacement. And that is basically Cross AI's list, slightly edited to fit my preferences. So there's the stuff. There's the sauce, guys. There's both lists, the one from Vivi, the one from Cross, and then my list as a comparison. Obviously, as you can see, my list relies heavily on yellow. Whoa, my headphones, no! Sorry. Oh, dang it. Hello? Hello, did you guys live? Whoa. Oh man, come on. There we go. Everything just crashed on me. That was my bad. Well, there you go. Sorry about that. Everything just exploded on me last minute. Very fitting for me. But yeah, there's my list. Oh, the volume got messed with. Did it? Hold on. There we go. Just drop it a little bit. All right, are we good? I think everything's fine. Yeah, we're still streaming. Okay, good. Man, what a disaster right at the end. But anyways, yeah, there's my list. This is my list. This is where I chose to put Yamato. This is kind of just how I want to play Yamato. This is the 50 I chose to play with. It's extremely strong. It leans heavier towards the aggressive Yamato list while still trying to play the Wano package. It has a very good late game. It can survive the late game. And then there are some finishers, but not great. If anything, I would recommend dropping 2 of these and putting 2 extra Hody Jones. However, I want my list to be more Yamato based. So I chose to play the 5-drop and the 9-drop Yamatos. I'm debating whether or not I want to put the 2k counters. Let me see if I can even find them. Actually, I'm gonna see if I can quickly show you what they look like. There we go. So here are the other ones. I really did think about running this in the list. It's a Rush Yamato that lets you look at your life cards. There's vanilla. Use another 2 that lets you take a life if you need to. However, I don't recommend it. Here's that one's okay. This one's okay. This one rests 4 costs or 6 costs. Yeah. So these cards are great. I like this one probably the most. This is probably the most likely to get put into the list. And as you can see here, it's a Wano Country. I believe the Wano Country cards can be searched out with Momonosuke. However, well, no, they can be, because I've done it in the simulator before and I've seen people do it. So even if it says Wano Country, it's fine. You can still search it. It's not a big deal. It's great to have another rush unit. Another one I was thinking about running in this list. Of course, if we didn't have Hody, I would be running Enel. Enel, this 7-drop Enel, especially with the events. I forgot what they're called. I think something like, did somebody say Kami? Let me go to, yeah, here it is. I Am God. Well, that's not the actual official name, but I Am God and Raigo, both amazing cards. If you, well, this is amazing if you have the 7-drop Enel. This is just straight up removal. This is your Red Hawk, or no, Red Rock. This is your Red Rock in yellow. It, literally a 1-for-1 copy of Red Rock, of Red Hawk. No, Red Rock. I was right. The only downside is that you're bringing your life all the way down to 1. I believe you're trashing, right? Yeah, you trash cards until you're at 1. That's the only downside to this card, but you're gonna have an answer for anything on the field. Of course, you're KOing, which obviously we've talked about. KOing could sometimes not be good. Like, things can get around KOs, as we saw with the with this. This can get around KO, and this will benefit from getting KO'd. Same thing with Kiku. Kiku benefits from getting KO'd. So yeah, so ideally, so sometimes you don't want to KO things. However, being able to answer anything on the field is very important. So I do like this card in the list. I also like this I Am God. Or did somebody say Kami? If you're running Enels, if I was running Enels, I would definitely try to fit this in here. At least 2 or 3 of these. And then I would probably try to fit like 2 or 3 of these as well. But yeah, there's the list. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I hope you had a good time. I really enjoy talking about One Piece. Theory crafting. Sorry that we can't play any games. The simulator just isn't working for me. I haven't been able to figure out what's wrong with it. And I'm gonna just wait for the next update to see if that fixes it. If not, you know, it's not a big deal, because I think theory crafting cards is just fine. I don't have an issue with theory crafting stuff. What else? I think that's pretty much it. Let me go down a little bit. I'm a little too high. There we go. But yeah, thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you had a good one. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're watching live or anything like that, if you're watching live or you're watching the VOD, thank you for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed the list. If any of these 3 lists interest you, let me know what you think about them. I'm a big fan of them. I just like Yamato a lot. I think Yamato's cool. So this is a deck that I've literally been theory crafting this deck since the starter deck 9 came out. Since the original Yamato deck got released, I've been theory crafting this deck for so long. So I've been cooking. I've been cooking for a while. So I'm glad that I can finally show you my finished dish, my finished meal. You know, after all this time, like maybe like what, close to a year, like 10 months of cooking. Maybe, I don't know. No, definitely not 10 months. Maybe like what, 4 months of cooking. You get to see the final product. And I'm gonna keep the deck like this. I don't suspect they're gonna make another Yamato leader. If they make another Yamato leader, I don't think it's gonna be yellow. I think they'll probably try to do like a different color, or at least a different color combo that may or may not have yellow in the future. But yeah, there's the deck. That deck is basically done until further notice. So it's gonna go into the vault and really just be played once in a while. It's a very strong deck, so I'll play it in locals. Only changes I'm gonna make are in the future. Maybe I'll be able to change out those Japanese Yamatos for English ones, but that's literally it. That's the only changes I'm making. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and well, I'm gonna love you and leave you right now. But as far as what we're gonna do next week, I don't know. I don't have a game plan, so we'll figure it out. We'll see. But yeah, next week we'll play a game. Next Wednesday we'll play a game, and then we'll come back to One Piece and look at something else. We have the Luffy deck, which is not done yet. I need to get more what's his name? Choppers. I need more choppers. I need to get 2 more choppers. Maybe get a Ivankov, but right now I can't afford Ivankovs because they're expensive. But we're gonna get more choppers before that deck is done. And then obviously whenever set 7, is it set 7? Yeah. Set 7 is gonna be released in a couple of weeks. So, well, actually no, in about a month. About a month, the next set's gonna be released, and we'll probably do more unpacking. I'll probably do a box opening of the new set. And then I'm gonna try to build a Vegapunk deck, which will be super fun. I'm really excited to see Vegapunk. And then of course the Warlords. I've been hyped up for the Warlords for so long. I'm gonna attempt to make the VV deck a Warlord centered deck, like a what is it? 7 Warlords tribe. So I think there's promise there. I think there's a lot of promise in the 7 Warlord set. But I'm gonna try it with VV. I also made upgrades to VV. VV right now is a Whitebeard deck, so I can show that. I think I'll show that next time. So next One Piece stream, we're gonna show off the VV list, and I'll let you see what I've been cooking. Spoilers, it's not great. I'm gonna wait for the new set to make final upgrades because I feel like the Warlord package is really good for VV. It's great for any blue deck actually. So if you're running blue, you should definitely consider adding the Warlords to your decks. They're just strong. The only downside is that they're all 4-drops. So you're going to be running a very heavy 4-drop list. Like you're going to be running 20 plus 4-drops easily. But yeah, okay. Now I'm going to leave you here. Thank you for watching. And I'll catch you guys next time. Goodbye. Goodbye.